long time, Agile were the underground king of extended range guitars. If you went on any forum like 7string.org or any Reddit subreddit about extended range guitars, in almost every thread titled "Which guitar should I buy for blank amount of money?" there was at least a couple people mentioning Agile. And for a good reason. Especially back then, Agile offered really decent quality guitars with really solid components for not very much money. That was a rare find back then, but even more rare in the extended range 7 or 8 string guitar market. But if you fast forward to today, there's plenty of budget options now for 7 and 8 string guitar players. Things like Harley Benton and an entire list of various Chinese Amazon brands come to mind. And moreover, Agile is no longer a real budget brand. So for a lot of people, guitars like this have been a bit forgotten. Or if you're somebody who's fairly new to guitar, you probably have never even heard of the brand Agile, which is a real shame. So long story short, I was in the market for an 8 string guitar and I wanted to get something that checked a lot of boxes but did not cost too much money. And so my first thoughts were something like maybe a Schecter, but I wanted a headless guitar really badly. I'm on a bit of a headless guitar kick right now. And I remembered, wait a second, Agile guitars. I haven't checked out Agile guitars in years. So I went on the Run On Music website and I saw all these super sexy guitars that had just tons of super awesome features, but they're kind of expensive now. I mean, this guitar new goes for $1,200, which is a far cry from those old Agiles that went for $300 back in the day. So like anybody else, I scoured the used market and I found this guitar for about $650 on Guitar Center Used website. So keep in mind that this is a guitar that I'm going to actively use. This is not a review fodder. This is something I'm going to use for my band. It's exactly what I wanted in so many ways. But it's not perfect. So this is going to be a pretty extensive review on this guitar. Everything I like about it, everything I don't like about it, and a few things that I'm just kind of particular about. So let's start with all the good things about this guitar. And there's a lot of good things about this guitar. And we're going to start with the specs of the guitar. Every spec on this guitar is exactly what I want, so I'll consider that to be most of the good of this guitar. It has Fishbone-influenced modern pickups, which sound amazing. They're tried and true. There are Fishbone-influenced modern haters out there, but I will never understand how somebody could play these pickups and dislike them, because they sound awesome. It has a 3-way switch, a volume and tone knob, and of course it has that Fishbone modern, sort of push-pull that controls the voicing of the pickups. It has a super aggressive scale length. On the low end here, it's 28.5 inches, and on the high end, it's 25.5 inches, which is really, really nice because it keeps this low 8 string super taut. So right now, I think it's down to E, and it's super, super tight, like any other string on the guitar. A real problem with 8 string guitars is that when you have anything less than 27 or 27.5, anything less than 27.5 inches, it gets really wobbly when you tune this thing down to E. But with a scale length this aggressive, it's extremely tight and feels amazing. These frets are also stainless steel, which obviously is a big upgrade. It has an ebony fretboard, and I think it just looks fantastic with no fret markers on it, although I will admit I do occasionally get lost past the 12th fret with all the aggressive fanning. It comes with luminlay side dots, or at least the equivalent of luminlays, but they really are quite glowy. And it has a swamp ash body with, I'm pretty sure, no veneer, just a paint job. And it has a 3-piece wenge and maple neck that looks and feels fantastic. And the neck shape is really, really nice and thin. It's like a wizard U neck, if you will, and it's extraordinarily comfortable on the hands. It also comes with 2 truss rods, which I've heard is good for 8-string guitars, but I can't pretend that I know any difference whatsoever, so I'm just not going to. And there's also no 0 fret, which is important to me. I cannot stand 0 frets on guitars. Speaking of which, I don't know what the nut material is, but it's really well cut and it's really smooth on the sides so you don't cut your fingers while playing up there. And it comes with the proprietary Agile Cepheus hardware, which on the low end here I think are fantastic, but on the high end, well, we do have some problems up here that we'll talk about in just a minute. I think they completely nailed the specs of the guitar, and it comes in new for $1,200, which I think is a fantastic deal overall. I have no intentions of modifying anything. I think that the pickups are perfect for an 8-string, which is awesome because changing these pickups would be a huge headache for an 8-string guitar. You really only have a handful of options for these soap bars, and they're expensive, and the installation is complicated, and it's just a whole thing I now don't have to deal with. It's partially why I spent a little more money than buying a budget guitar for my 8-string guitar. And most importantly, I think this guitar looks fucking sit. I think having a guitar that looks as awesome as this one is really important, because when I have a guitar that looks this cool, I just want to play it more. Everyone I've showed this guitar to has been super stoked on just the way it looks alone. And I also like the fact that it's not a Strandberg clone by any stretch of the imagination. Nothing frustrates me as much as going online and seeing all these Chinese Strandberg knockoffs that are a one-for-one design from Strandberg. This obviously is not that, which is kind of nice for a headless guitar in this market. Now, having said all of these good things about the guitar, there are a handful of things on this guitar that I think are a net negative. And we're going to start from the least negative to the most negative, because I have a lot to say about the most negative. The first negative about this guitar was the fret sprout. When I got this guitar, the frets were so sharp that I could not fix it personally. And something I'm really good at generally is fixing fret sprout. It's a pretty easy fix, but the fret sprout was so aggressively bad that I had to ask my friend, who's a guitar tech at a local guitar store, if he could fix it. Fortunately, the fret sprout came from a super thirsty and dry ebony fretboard, which was a really easy fix. So I took off all these strings and I put some F1 oil on the fretboard. It took 3 passes before it stopped accepting the oil. So you put some oil on, you spread it around, you let it sit for a few minutes, and then you come back and you wipe it off. Well, the first time it just absorbed all of the oil. So I did it again, and again, it absorbed almost all of that F1 oil, and then finally, the third pass, again, letting it sit for a good 5 minutes, it finally started rejecting some of the oil. Now, the good thing about that is the fret sprout is completely fixed. It's been sitting over my guitar stand for about a week and a half now, and there is no more fret sprout. So straight away, the wood stretched right back out, and I'm telling you, it was kind of an amazing thing to watch, and now it just feels crazy comfortable. I'm totally confident to do this, and yeah, before though, had I done this, I would have legitimately cut my hands. So this is a used guitar, so I don't know if it's really fair to blame Agile for the condition of that fretboard. Anyways, it was a huge bummer at first and a pretty easy fix. But if you're somebody that doesn't like fixing up little things like that, just know that the fretboard, at least on this product, tends to dry out pretty fast. So be prepared to oil your fretboard, which you should be doing anyways. Another kind of small con on this guitar that really isn't a huge deal, much like the fret sprout that was very easily fixed, is the block back here. It's not like super recessed for your hand, and so sometimes when I play the guitar, I do find myself getting stuck. Let's see here on the camera. Oh, come on now. There it is. I do find myself getting kind of stuck up here once in a while. It's not by any stretch of the imagination the worst I've ever seen, but it is not perfect. And it'd be very easy just to kind of like pull a keyhole and make a little slope right here or something like that. Not a huge deal, but it's something that could be improved upon. I would never complain about this normally, but because I'm doing a review video, I kind of gotta find things to complain about, right? But that does lead me to the biggest complaint on the guitar. So big, I almost returned this guitar, which really made me sad. This hardware down here is garbage. It's just not good, okay? When I got this guitar, it was used, and I quickly discovered why he brought his guitar to Guitar Center and sold it to them. The screw that holds the string in place had completely stripped from the hardware. I thought that was kind of strange because he had a replacement saddle already in the case he bought for it. So I thought, no big deal. When I change these strings, I will simply put the new saddle on and, you know, bada bing, bada boom. Now, when I got my set of strings, the 8th string immediately stripped, like that, immediately stripped. And I was stunned, but I figured I had done something wrong. In general, when something goes wrong, I think the mature thing to do is assume that it's your fault. And in this case, I now know it really was not my fault. So I went to their website, I ordered a new replacement here, which was like $7, no big deal. And I now had 2 replacement saddles laying around. So I got it in, and through a lot of effort, I eventually got the new one to work. It was really hard. I mean, it was a crazy thing. I feel like it's not enough space to hold the string. So for example, you could very easily fit this in with no string inside the saddle, but once this string gets inside that saddle, it barely goes in place. And I now see on the FAQ on their website, they say they don't suggest removing the screw entirely from the saddle, which is fine, but with this 8 string, you kind of have to fit in the 8 string because it's so thick. So I really dread my next string change. I plan to order a handful more of these to have laying around. But that isn't even the worst problem. I gotta calm down. I'm not that mad. It's fine, everything's fine. The same thing had happened on the 7th string, and I already was aware of that one, so I had another saddle laying around. And so I went to go replace the saddle, and I now saw why this guitar was at Guitar Center. The screw that holds the saddle down, the little tiny screw that holds the saddle, not this saddle right here, but one of the two on top, was completely stripped. Completely stripped. And there was nothing I could do. It was complete lost cause. I called 2 Guitar Centers, a local music shop, and 3 hardware stores asking for what I should do to get rid of that stripped screw. And they all said that because it was such a fragile instrument, they didn't think I could do anything. So I sat there for about 2 hours, just freaking out. At some point, I threw my screwdriver across the room and started swearing a bunch, which is very unlike me. I'm a very patient person. And what I wound up doing was taking a pair of wire clippers and completely destroying the outside saddle, just ripping it into shreds just to get it the screw on the inside, which, by the way, fucking worked. And so I got the screw out, and now both of these pieces only have 1 screw in them because the screws that hold these down in the first place are super cheap. Now, that's why this dude brought his guitar to Guitar Center and gave it to me as a problem. Now, I am not one to give up on things, okay? That took me about 4 hours of thinking and ingenuity, and it just was a whole process. But I did it, and I'm happy I did. But I am dreading my next string change. I know something's going to go wrong, at least with the low string. Okay, now I could slip in that 7th string without taking out the locking piece entirely, so I'm not too concerned about that. But I just know the next time I change the string on this one, it's going to be an issue. I just know it is. And I'm afraid now that I'm going to strip the screw. Okay, now I have a solution for this now, which is just destroying the entire thing itself, but that sucks. That sucks. I have never encountered that in all these years playing headless guitars, and I have owned everything from Kiesel to Strandberg to GOC to Legator to NK. I've had it all. This is the worst design I have seen on any headless guitar, bar none, and that includes the super cheap ones. And this to me is the easy part. Now, they totally nailed the bridge. This is one of the nicest and clearly most affordable bridges I have seen on any headless guitar. And it's fucking awesome. It's really, really nice, really well thought out, really cleverly designed. But this, it's a nightmare. Absolute nightmare. Now, I don't want to leave on a huge sour note because ultimately it now works, it now operates, and I'm confident that I could fix it again if something were to happen like that. But since I think Agile might be watching this video, you need to fix this, bro. Like, you have such a good guitar on your hands. It's a real home run, but this top hardware is just, it's so rough. The biggest glaring problem probably is the fact that the screws that hold it down to begin with are super cheap pot metal. You need to find a way to replace those with some kind of high quality stainless steel screws. The first thing I'm going to do before I change my strings next is I'm going to replace every single screw with a high quality stainless steel replacement screw from Ace Hardware up the street. Ultimately, I think in this climate of emerging, interesting headless guitars and good budget 8-string guitars, Agile still has a very, very compelling place in that market. I think this guitar is well worth the purchase. Although this hardware was really frustrating to fix, I'm still really stoked on this guitar. I can't put it down. I can't stop playing it. It feels great. It sounds great. It looks fucking awesome, and I think that Agile Guitars still remains one of the best guitar companies for people that are on some kind of budget. I'm honestly tempted to buy a couple more of these. So if I were you and I were in the 8-string guitar market, or God forbid the 9 or 10-string guitar market, I would pretty confidently buy one of these Agile headless guitars if you like the way they look. It's gonna sound great, it's gonna feel great. Just be prepared for a little bit of headache when it comes to these styles up here. But I'm pretty dumb and I fixed it. So if I can fix it, I'm pretty sure you can fix it too. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you on the next video. And if you like this video, please like and subscribe because, you know, that's good. That's a good thing for me.